the aesthetic of it. I thought it sounded like a terrible skill, and that's why the first thing I did whenever I got on after the update was to look for ways to not have to physically sail. I know, I'm a bit stubborn. I found out later on
No way Loot said you ate the white boy that ate lunch. Like,
my level
guys.
3, which I will showcase a new video on in the coming week, that sailing isn't so bad once you hit a certain level, but the early levels of sailing are really what hits hard. And most people do agree with me here, I believe, that the early sailing game is extremely slow.
True.
Unless you decide to never sail. So eventually we're probably going to be able to train sailing with lamps and early quest reward XP, and there are some quests currently out for sailing right now that do reward small amounts of sailing, being Pandemonium at level 1, which gets you a little bit of sailing XP, I believe, to level 4, as well as there's another sailing quest around level 12, and then there's some even later on, but still these are minimal XP rewards, and lamps are still locked to the sailing skill.
Okay.
I decided maybe there was a way to pick this pace up a bit on an entirely different account, one that once again has either already medium diary specifically or the King's Ransom and Knight's training waves done to set the spawn point to either Camelot or the center of Ardoin. A huge part of the early gains in sailing is doing some charting. There are some ways to actually now get on friends' boats. People have found out, trim the sails on those higher level sails and boats to get more XP, as well as just take them on charting journeys to get the low levels out of the way. But this was even more efficient than that. To get started, you would need 20 sailing, so you could go ahead and hop on someone's boat for a little bit and chart some things, as well as do the 2 very beginning quests, or even 3 if you have 30 smithing and knight's sword. But you would need 20 sailing to get this method started. When sailing came out, the whole go-to was to pick up 1 cargo and transport it in your boat in the cargo hold from one port to another. The problem with this is the distance between each port and the sail on your boat is so bad at low levels that it would take a very long time to get from one side of the map to the other. And some of these early shipping tasks were even from, let's say, Camelot all the way to Piscarilis and Zea on the other side of the map. That would be like a half-hour journey sometimes to complete, all for 900 to 1200 sailing XP. And the shorter journeys, which still weren't short at all, were only rewarding between 70 and 300 sailing XP, especially at these lower levels. So the early sailing game up till I would say almost level 40 is looking very rough, and that's why I decided to, well, try and implement a new method and just see if it would work in theory. But it brought a little life to the early game of sailing for me personally, and I enjoyed figuring this out. Like I said earlier, when you get these shipments to move from one port to the other, you have to sail with them and put them in your cargo hold. And this is because you have to pick it up with your hands, and then once you move away from the port, the SWAT team after about 5 seconds will come and take the cargo crate away from your character. As well, if you die with one of these crates, it is an automatically deleted on death item, so you can't take it anywhere on death. You can't even teleport with one of these things equipped, and you can't unequip the crate and hold it in your inventory or bank it. But one check that got past Jagex and that I realized in the first couple of days within this update was that you could Ring of Life actually and still hold the crate. Quick shout out to no one but myself because I'm the sponsor of today's video. If you enjoy this content, at the end of the video, leave it a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a positive comment, maybe even press the join button for 99 cents. I am planning on streaming here in likely a few weeks still, and the join button will be very important for this. It's like the Twitch subscriber button, but 5 times cheaper, okay? So a reasonable goal I want to make here is 4,000 members on my YouTube channel through that join button. What should I say?
What do you mean? What are you trying to say?
I'm gonna monetize you.
What the fuck?
Like if I hit this goal, I'll show you the person I'm marrying who's living currently under my desk. I will reveal.
What do you mean? What are you trying?
That sounds like a child.
I'm gonna monetize you.
What the fuck?
I hope that's a voice changer, bro. I fucking hope that's a voice changer, dude.
Like if I hit this goal, I'll show you the person I'm marrying who's living currently under my desk. I will reveal to you one of the most famous RuneScape
E-girls
that is currently living under my desk. Oh, and you'll be funding our wedding by doing this. So 4,000 join button members, and you get to see who I'm marrying. I'm monetizing my relationship. For some reason, the Ring of Life would still proc and it would still teleport. Unlike other areas where all teleports are blocked, the Ring of Life is also blocked. For some reason, with this specific item, it was not teleport blocked with the Ring of Life and the Ring of Life only. So typically, if my spawn was in Lumbridge or Edgeville or Falador, I wouldn't be close to any ports, and I would still have this 5-second rule to where the recovery team would come and collect the cargo off of me if I wasn't in a certain map square area of a port. But there are 2 spawn points specifically I found that did have maybe a possibility of making it back to port within 5 seconds or close to it before that SWAT team arrived. And that was the respawn point with the Ring of Life at either Camelot near the teleport spot and running to Catherby Port, or in Artie after Artie Medium Diaries running to Artie Port, which looked like an even shorter trek, but I had no accounts with the Artie Medium Diary requirements. So we're gonna have to go with Camelot today, but
It's a voice changer, bro. Stop being weird, bro. No shit, you fucking retard.
in theory, this whole method would have worked with Artie. Artie is also a higher level requirement, being 30 or 35, whereas Camelot is only 20. So you can get started earlier with this method at Camelot at level 20 with Knight's Training Ground, or you can wait till the higher levels to do Artie and possibly get a significantly larger chunk of XP, especially per hour. So at first, this account didn't even have a rock cake. I was having to use these Araxite Venom Sacs and eat up and make sure I didn't die, because these can actually overshot your HP, unlike the orb or the rock cake and most other self-damage inflicting items in the game. But with these Venom Sacs, I would have to make sure to eat between each HP, get my HP below 20% to trigger that Ring of Life, and then head to my respawn point, and from there, book it to the nearest dock. There was a problem I found out quickly though, and that was the nearest dock to Camelot Teleport was not even close to being within that 5 to 10 second range before the SWAT team came and confiscated the crate off of my now portless character. But there was still one other trick up my sleeve that would possibly allow for me to get all the way to the port from still a closer teleport spot such as this. And that was interface walking. Interface walking I've used in many videos in the past, but it's been changed over the years many times, patched many times, and now it can pretty much only be used one time to get to your destination. How you do it currently is by using one object on another object, but now it can't be used multiple times in a row, because whenever you use this item in your inventory on the object, it cuts out all interfaces and dialogues for exactly one tick, basically killing all actions you might have stacked behind the interface on your player. So I would have to run within the first 5 to 10 seconds to a visible range of an object that is close to or in the port range area of Catherby Port, and then use that item in my inventory on the object in a one-click motion, then interface after one tick, but before the SWAT team came to get my cargo crate, and make it all the way therefore with my interface walk to the dock. Now, I was a little bit concerned with this method because I thought the SWAT team would be queued on me even though I was interfaced, but in fact it only checks where you're at the exact second you release the interface. And the SWAT team doesn't come and get your cargo crate as long as you're back inside the port's area of bounds. So I mapped out specifically Catherby Port to see exactly what of the cargo area was specifically cargo, and that was to the west of the boat, to the north of the fence going into the dock, and to the east of the most eastern boat. So I could go within any of these area of bounds, and as long as I released the interface here with the cargo on my character, the SWAT team would not come and confiscate what I was wielding, and therefore I could then use another 5 to 10 seconds to either go around from this object here north back into the port, or I could use my interface walk directly on an object if I was close enough. That would already put me in port the second I released that interface, and therefore I could freely walk to deposit the cargo and get the full XP from that cargo shipment as if I had taken it all the way on a boat from one port to another, which would have taken anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes. As my levels got higher, I unlocked even higher port tasks and more XP tasks. Now the task board where I would take these cargo shipment tasks would change every 8 tasks, but I found out in these ports there's always an option on the task board for either one, taking a shipment from where you're located to another port, or another port that locates back to your shipment. And if you take that shipment on the port board you're currently at,
I wonder what kind of tism you have to like, when sailing comes out, like this is the first thing you do. Like, I respect it, bro. I respect it. Don't get me wrong. But like, what kind of tism is this? You know what I'm saying?
Is from a faraway port that you have to go to and then come back to the port you're currently at, it will actually reward you quite a bit more XP. So in Catherby, for example, I would take the port tasks that were starting from a further distance, and then I would teleport or charter ship, go pick up that crate, self-inflict damage, Ring of Life, run for 5 to 10 seconds, then interface walk to the port and turn in that cargo back to Catherby port for the most XP. And I could do this as fast as 30 seconds for a 300 to 500 XP drop, and repeat, continue. Grab more rings of life out of the bank, grab more stamina potions out of the bank. Eventually I got a rock cake, so I didn't have to keep eating trout and monitoring my HP, because rock cake will never kill you, but it will always proc the ring of life there. So it streamlined the process a little bit more, but there were a couple other issues I ran into.
What's the other issues?
Sometimes whenever I would ring of life back to the Catherby spawn point, I wouldn't be able to see objects and right click them due to a RuneLite update that basically followed in line with Jagex's plugin policies and an update to that many years ago. Before, RuneLite used to actually render with the GPU plugin objects further out that you could see, and you could right click them and interact with them from much further away. But after this policy update by Jagex, they removed that feature from the GPU plugin, and although you can right click further out than without the GPU plugin on initially, you can't click all the way to the visible site of objects you originally could.
That was probably when people were like doing rune crafting and shit, like astral rune crafting, and you could click the altar from the bank, like the literal fucking bank.
Earlier things such as OS Buddy also had OpenGL, which was one of the first GPU plugins, where you could actually right-click objects that were hundreds of tiles away from your character. But now with this update and the compliant RuneLite client, I can't always get a right-click on these objects to use an item on them within the 5 to 10 second range before the SWAT team shows up. So this method did become a little RNG dependent. I tried to mitigate this by finding objects that were closer, that were just barely in the square area of the port, such as on the outskirts, but it always had a chance of rendering me whenever I spawned into the Camelot spawn point. I've never seen these objects within the 5 to 10 second mark, sometimes at the last split tick, not giving me a tick to then wait for the interface walk to establish after that first tick of cancellation. So I'd say there was about a 20% chance that I would spawn in and not be able to reach an object and interface walk all the way to it, and at that point I would just have to go back, charter the ship, and grab the cargo again and hope for that 80% chance of seeing the objects on my initial teleport into the spawn point. I tried to mitigate this through other means, such as by using Addy seeds and moving myself east while still having an interface up by doing so, but there are so many objects in this Catherby port. This may have been possible in other places like Arty, but here with all the ground objects, trees, and everything else around, I couldn't have a clearance of moving far enough east from an initial object that was within my rendered distance.
Yeah, your mom.
As well, I tried using my item on other objects that were just outside of the area and stepping in, but unfortunately it tracked your true tile the second your interface exited out, not the tick after. Another thing that works with this interface walking is ground items and using an object on those. So I tried something such as a beginner clue scroll, which lasts an hour on the ground, and using my item from my inventory on that. But I forgot that ground items only have a visible range of 15 tiles, even with GPU mode on like this, and therefore that would never work. Me trying to get inside that 15 tile range within the 5 to 10 second window before getting my cargo confiscated. And my last attempt at mitigating this 20% or so RNG check was to use an object like a mithril seed or a cannon base on tiles that were possibly within my render object use range, but that were on the cusp of it and visible to me. Unfortunately, I found out that objects you place on the floor, such as a flower, has even less of a visible range than ones that are always put on the map, so this also didn't work. At the end of the day, we had to accept that.
Rookie mistake of him forgetting about the 15 tile render range of ground items. Expected more of him, honestly. I think Rendi's kind of washed, man. I think he's kind of washed up.
20% chance of failure on respawn with the rock cake and the ring of life, and that we would just get our crate confiscated over and over again on this unlucky phase. So even at level 20 sailing, by accepting the tasks on the notice board that weren't even that far away, you could be getting about a task done on average every 40 seconds or so, and about 350 XP per task, putting us at almost about 40,000 XP per hour at extremely low sailing levels, which whenever I was doing sailing legitimately on my other account and even on this account at first, I was getting like 4,000 sailing XP per hour. So we're 10xing our sailing XP per hour at very low levels here. And although this might not work for long, you know, and I wouldn't suggest doing it for sailing at this level, it's impeccable. And if you get a medium Arty diary done and change your spawn point to Arty, which I didn't have the time or the skills or anything like that for this account to do that, I feel like you could optimize this method for a lot more XP per hour. Not to mention, you'll randomly get those tasks that are on the other side of the map in Zaya, where it wants you to retrieve something from Piscarilia's port at level 25 sailing, and those tasks seem to reward anywhere from 900 to 1500 sailing XP, which you're going to be able to do 8 times in a row. So it's like an extra bonus of of 10,000 XP per hour on average. So this could push this up to maybe even 50,000 XP per hour starting at level 25 sailing. So at 20 sailing, we're looking at an average of probably 40,000 XP per hour if max efficiency. 25 sailing, looking at maybe an extra 10,000 bonus XP per hour, so 50,000 XP per hour. Once you get to 35 sailing and arty ports, and you're getting those Piscarius tasks on top of just normal tasks back and forth to arty that have an increased bonus as well. The arty respawn point has a shorter run, about half of that from the Camelot to the Catherby, and zero chance of RNG based failures because the port is so close by. You'll always get an object in your line of sight on the arty center map respawn. And with this method and arty medium diary completed, you'd be looking at about 70 to 80,000 sailing XP per hour at maximum efficiency using this method without ever sailing.
Well, just click on a person.
Obviously, at higher levels, there's other methods that are better, more AFK, such as salvaging, I've found out. And this does get very repetitive. And let's be honest, it won't be around for much longer. And once again, I don't suggest doing this. But the whole matter of fact and the point of this video was the journey getting there and how I dissected possibly a new method for sailing on the release day that never involved sailing and just...
I like it. I like it. He's always pushing the boundaries of what's possible in RuneScape. You know what I mean? And you know what I like about Rendi is he says himself that he's not a good RuneScape player. He's just a nerd. You know what I mean? Like, he just knows a lot of shit about RuneScape. But like, in terms of like mechanically, he's like, nah. You know what I mean? That's what I like about Rendi. He's a good kid, man. He's a good kid.
Way back, coming back after all these years. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat. That's the way it is.
Smart Lucky. That is very smart. What's going on, Beats by Bray? How you doing, miss?